Welcome to a short journey on my mind. And here I am again with my two friends, Dave and Sam.
Hello, Kevin.
And we are trying.
Very formal. I try.
Thank
formal.
you. Yes, very formal. As we take a few minutes and answer one of the questions that is actually posed to me a few times, is how do I know when I really need to see a therapist? And
luckily, we have a therapist sitting right here.
Right. And
by the way, sometimes I'm in a therapy session talking to somebody and going, this guy needs to see a
therapist. Let me recommend you to someone.
Well, what's interesting is Journey has a lot of therapists.
We do.
Yeah, a lot of good ones.
That attend here and are part of our community.
Absolutely.
So we're not saying just go see Dave. We're saying therapist in general,
Yeah,
just as a disclaimer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But like if you're sitting there and you're thinking, man, when do I actually go talk to somebody?
Yeah, how do I know it's time?
Yeah, how do I know it's
time?
Or should I? Yeah,
Well, can I deflect it to you first?
Sure, feel free.
Both of you.
Or to Sam.
You're on the end of it that you're having to make that suggestion sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So there are plenty of things that you talk about that you've never told someone maybe you should go see a therapist, but there are probably other times when you have.
Absolutely.
What's your internal process for that?
Well, usually for me, I'll initially usually meet with somebody, sit down with somebody or a couple, or that's more of a discovery to kind of try and understand what's going on, it's almost hard to put words to how I like my process, just because there's a bit of a gut to it too. That's like, okay, this is stepping out of, like we're getting into some things that have, I think that it would be helpful to have a clinician's wisdom or and so that's usually when I'll recommend, is when I feel like I'm starting to get into a deeper end of, and it can be a broad spectrum of different things,
right?
But so that's not a very good answer, but it's
the part about you're paying attention to something internally.
Yes.
That's like, now's the time. I feel it in my gut, but there might be a whole lot of factors behind it.
100%.
Yeah.
For me, after talking to somebody, I kind of approach things from the standpoint of just a general wisdom kind of perspective. Some things I can pray with somebody about, something that could be easily talked through. Like I'm in this disagreement with my spouse. Can we talk through how to just resolve a disagreement? But if it looks like it's going to take like multiple meetings and there's a lot to it, I usually refer it out.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's probably a time thing as much with me, but also there's part of me that also is discerning this thing, is because I don't cost anything. They can come and sit and listen to me and gain wisdom or gain whatever it is or whatever I've got or not or whatever, but they don't have to do anything with it. And if they choose not to do anything with it and they come back, I'm going to say, you probably need to talk to somebody that is a professional that you're going to have to pay for, because you need a little money in the game.
Yeah, a little skin in the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
I know that isn't necessarily how everybody makes that decision,
No,
but it
good.
seems practical.
Well, I think it is. It is practical.
We know that actually makes a difference. If somebody sees something as being just, that they can,
if it's free, there's not as much value.
Right.
A perceived value.
Not as much.
Anyway.
Or not as much emotional commitment.
Right.
Right.
It's good.
Yeah.
I would add. I like all that. What I would add is if let's say someone's gone through a difficult time, they're facing a separation or divorce, or they've lost a loved one, or they've often those things, even though they're huge, can be worked out with someone's social supports and pastors. I think where, for me, it starts to get into the territory of maybe you need to see somebody else is, number one, if it persists for a long time to the point where this isn't getting better. Right. You wouldn't expect someone to get over a grief immediately, but if they're in the grieving process months in,
and it hasn't really moved,
and had moved,
yeah,
then maybe so. Or if they're right? So part of it's
that's good.
the timeline. Some of it's the intensity of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if their grief is such, we're just using grief, but it could be fill in the blank,
right,
is such that they're not functioning well because it's so intense.
Yeah.
Then I'd say that's a biggie. Which third one was very related is the question I always ask is about functioning.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, that's not the only question, but it is a question because there are some people that are very depressed and function great.
Yeah.
Some people that are alcoholic and function
great.
Great.
Yeah, right.
Except when they don't.
Yes.
Right. So it's not only about functioning, but I sometimes do want to ask if someone's so anxious, for example, that they can't go to work consistently or go to school consistently or go out and meet people or whatever it is.
Right.
Then we're in a different territory.
Like if it's impeding their ability to function in life, whatever that thing. Yeah.
I would absolutely
hold a job.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because those are all like you put words to those kind of some of those.
The gut.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
And I think the corollary of if it lasts a long time is if it is stuck.
Right.
If something, whether it's grief or whether it's a recovery process or whether it's resolving a trauma is not budging.
Like if it's spinning its wheels in that same place.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say that's a biggie.
It's good.
How about when you're just I've just attuned to this more since COVID is when you talk to somebody and you hear signs of depression or you hear kind of like symptoms of it.
Yeah.
But it may not be chronic. It may not be, but it may be like, oh, how deep is this? And you can kind of probe that a little bit. Is that?
I would run it through some of this grid because to be honest, someone could be depressed and not always need to see a therapist, but often they would. And sometimes people are just sad, and that's different than being depressed.
Okay, so if you're listening to this right now and you think, oh, I might be depressed, how do I know the difference between, I'm kind of sad or I'm struggling with depression?
Well, I'm going to give sort of a backwards answer, which is sometimes you need an
Go
external voice to tell you that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Sometimes you need to go ahead and make the first step to say, here's what's going on. Is this normal?
Right.
I have that question all the time. I have people come in and say, this is happening. Is this normal? And sometimes I'll say, yeah. And sometimes I'll say, no.
I think, and oftentimes I think people live in it for so long that it becomes their normal and they don't, you don't know. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would.
That's why I think that's part you might not know. Whether
And the other test that I would put to that is, let's say someone you're very close with dies.
Okay.
How sad should you be? A 10? A 9? Yeah.
Right.
Right. What if someone that you like a great aunt that you've met twice dies and you're like crushed? Well, there's a gap there between what the objective reality is and the impact of that.
Right.
Whatever, and we could give a bunch of other scenarios, but that's the idea is like anytime your emotional response does not align with reality to a big degree.
Right.
Okay.
So if something devastating happens and you're devastated,
you should be.
Yeah. You should be. Now that doesn't mean you shouldn't see a therapist.
Right.
But the answer to the question of am I depressed or is this regular anxiety or an anxiety disorder?
Right.
It's like, okay, if you have to give a 5-minute presentation at your work once a week for the team and you are so overcome with anxiety that you can barely function and you're sweating all over the place.
Right.
Right. And it's like an 8 on a 10 scale.
Right.
Well, that's probably not an 8 on a 10 scale objectively.
Right.
That's probably a 3.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm saying for most people, I'm not judging it.
In
I'm
the
just
average,
saying as far as how to make that, it's like if it doesn't match.
If that emotion is, if the energy of that emotion is so
the intensity of it,
overboard,
or just
the intensity
and duration.
And duration.
Yeah, those two.
Those are the two: intensity and duration.
Yep, that would be.
And if other side of the coin, right? Spouse dies in a car accident.
We're a cheery bunch.
Yeah.
Aren't we?
Okay, but
fun conversation.
And your emotions are 1 out of 10.
Great question.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Rather than
right.
Whoa, it's like, huh.
Well, I'd want to understand that better before, but assuming that all things are normal, then I'd be like, I think that's a person that, on the other side of it, it's not matched.
It doesn't match.
It's out of alignment.
It cannot match both ways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question.
Okay. Yeah.
Really good.
I'll say two more things. One is, I think if whatever's going on has a major impact on relationships that are significant relationships,
right,
I think that's always a good sign to seek out some help.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the other that I'm going to make a pitch for, and I don't mean this in some kind of like recreational way, but often we think, and I have this happen all the time, people come in and say, I didn't think I needed to see a therapist because, whatever their association with it is. But sometimes people, it's just part of being a healthy person. In the same way, I went to the dentist today for a scheduled cleaning and all that stuff.
Right.
We don't think that's weird. We don't. We go to the doctor hopefully once a year for a regular physical and some kind of aligning of things. There's
Are you supposed to do that?
Some people
every 10 years. After 50, every 10 years.
Okay, got it.
But my bigger point with this is,
sorry, I couldn't help that.
But it feels like there are times when some people that it's good to have a person in a professional role that's just keeping them healthy, not because something devastating's happened, or something. It's just part of their coping. It's part of their, and that varies by person to person.
Well, I've done that at times where it's like, I've been in therapy or done marriage counseling, whatever, and then later on, maybe nothing's wrong, but it's like we want to keep it this way, right? So like, let's just do a check-in, so I encourage that a lot.
I have guys that do that. I haven't seen them for 4 months, 6 months. And they pop in, they just kind of give me an update. Yeah. They pose some questions to me. Do you think about, what about this or that? I think that's really sometimes very good too.
And I love that we're talking about that because we do that with every other aspect of our body, right?
We do. Everything else.
We're supposed to.
We're supposed to. Yeah. And we don't stigmatize that at all. We don't think that's just being
weird or something. Yeah.
And so I want to get us to the place where this kind of taking care of the mental health side is just as normalized as the other.
That's great.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us on another short journey on my mind.